Shoe Camp, 1890, buffalo hide teepees, gathered families, and the daily life of a resilient people. Buffalo Soldier, 1890, portrait of a member of the U.S. Army units formed by African-American men, known for their courage and discipline. The Deadwood Stagecoach, 1889, one of the stagecoaches that crossed the West, carrying passengers, gold, and mail along dangerous routes. The completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, 1869, the historic moment when the eastern and western lines finally met, linking the country by rail. A Montana ranch, comfortable though not elegant, and home to many people involved in mining or cattle raising, in 1872. An ox train used to transport supplies in the Arizona Territory. A family poses with their native domestic worker, their young children, and their dog outside a log cabin in the New Mexico Territory, circa 1895. Black Hills Expedition. General George A. Custer commands a column of cavalry, artillery, and wagons across the plains of the Dakota Territory. In 1874, Custer led the expedition into the Black Hills to investigate the region's gold mining potential and locate a site for a fort. The execution of a soldier of the 8th Infantry, Prescott, Arizona. Unknown photographer, 1877. The lynching of John Heath, Tombstone, Arizona. Heath was executed for a robbery in which 4 people were killed. Unknown photographer, February 22, 1884. General view of Deadwood, Dakota Territory. Present-day Deadwood, South Dakota. Originally a gold rush town, 1876. The Bandit Queen, Belle Starr, from the Indian Territory, was another lady drawn to outlaws. She got involved with several, including Cole Younger, and married others, Jim Reed and Sam Starr. Photograph from 1886. Bloody Bill Anderson, one of the most bloodthirsty, pro-Confederate leaders of the Civil War. When he was killed, this photo was found in his coat in 1864. Bill Doolin, with a reward on his head, the outlaw from the Oklahoma Territory. Bill Doolin was an attractive target. When Doolin was shot dead in August 1896, he had around 20 lead wounds, courtesy of Heck Thomas. The federal deputy received a reward of nearly $1,500 and split it among the 7 members of his posse. Canyon de Chelly in 1904. Navajo riders crossing the desert through the middle of the canyon, Arizona. Cowboys taking a bath. Cattle drives usually lasted 3 months, so cowboys often bathed at the end of the trail before heading to a cattle town to celebrate. It is not known who he was, but there are doubts between being a frontier explorer, forest ranger, or Pony Express messenger. Lunchtime. In Greenwood County, Kansas, these emigrants stop for lunch beside their wagon. Jesse James. The most famous member of the James Younger Gang, outlaw leader Jesse James, was assassinated in 1882. And this postcard of him was made that same year. Cattle thieves from New Mexico. Although we don't know the identity of these men in this circa 1880 photo, several historians believe the standing man is John Kinney, who, in 1875, led one of the most feared bands of cattle thieves in southern New Mexico. Pearl Hart. After committing one of the last stagecoach robberies of the Old West in 1899, Pearl Hart gained national fame when she was mentioned in Cosmopolitan magazine. She was imprisoned in the Yuma Territorial Prison in Arizona and released earlier than expected, for unknown reasons, when the governor pardoned her in 1902. Rufus Buck Gang. The only men hanged in Fort Smith, Arkansas, for rape. These 5 members of the Rufus Buck Gang were executed on July 1, 1896. As far as we know, this was the largest mass execution for rape in U.S. history. Olive Oatman, probably the most famous photograph of a former native captive, taken after her ransom was paid in 1856. This photo of the Mormon Olive Oatman shows the blue cactus tattoo her Mojave captors gave her to ensure a good afterlife. Texas Rangers Regiment, unofficially formed by Stephen Austin in 1823 and officially organized in 1835, the Texas Rangers Regiment has a rich history of pursuing fugitives and protecting the frontier. This photograph dates to around 1885. Killed in the streets of Tombstone was the sign mourners carried during the funeral procession. They were killed during the gunfight behind the OK Corral in 1881. Their bodies were displayed in the window of a local hardware store. Wild Bill Hickok. Considered by many the first and greatest gunslinger of the Old West, Wild Bill Hickok wears his own clothes in this 1865-66 photo, not a stage costume as in most of his pictures. Billy Brooks. This photo of Billy Brooks portrays a typical 1870s gunman, and he fit the profile. He was a lawman in Newton and Ellsworth, Kansas, a gunfighter in Dodge City, before any of these towns became Old West centers, and died hanged in 1874 as a horse thief. This photo was probably taken around 1872. Curly, Custer's Crow Scout, known for being a handsome 17-year-old when he witnessed Custer's fall at Little Bighorn. As Custer's scout, he was close to the battle but did not participate. Though he was one of the first to report what happened, he did not speak English and communicated what he saw through sign language. When word spread that Curly was the sole survivor of the battle, he became famous and his photograph became highly sought after. The first Texas Rangers, perhaps the most legendary lawmen of the West, the Texas Rangers' main adversaries after the Civil War were the Comanches, not outlaws. Photos of Texas Rangers taken before 1870 are rare. This one was taken in 1868. Ned Christie, after his death. Ned Christie was not a typical outlaw who robbed banks and trains. He was a Cherokee whose crime was whiskey smuggling and possibly horse theft. His notoriety came from the fight he waged against officers trying to arrest him. As seen in this photo, he ultimately lost, being shot to death in his fortified house atop a mountain near Tahlequah in the Cherokee Nation in 1892. In the 1890s, photos like this were often taken of dead outlaws, almost like trophies. A rider fills his barrel at a desert well, 48 kilometers north of Palomas, Arizona. His horse cools off nearby. 1907, group of Apache prisoners resting beside the Southern Pacific Railroad near the Nueces River, Texas, 1886. Two common methods of transporting water in Old Mexico and the American Southwest, Texas, 1905. Lots in a new territory being auctioned inside this tent, California, 1904. First house on the site where Dodge City, Kansas, built sometime in August, 1872. A poker party at John Doyle's ranch in Arizona, 1887. On ranches far from towns, men usually passed time betting cigarettes, drinks, and even ammunition. Interior of a bar at the Table Bluff Hotel and Saloon, Humboldt County, California, 1889. A typical bar with wooden furniture and animal hides, including bear. Founding of a new town, Anadarko town site, August 8, 1901. Auction underway at a lumber company stand. Temporary bank buildings and the early beginnings of a lodging house nearby. Photograph of a family with their covered wagon during the Great Westward Migration. Loup Valley, Nebraska, 1886. Not all families were lucky. Many were robbed or even killed during migration. Gros Ventre Camp, Fort Belknap Indian Reservation. A dog is being roasted in a pot on the reservation in Montana in 1906. Only in extreme situations would they choose to roast pets, such as cats or dogs. Jimmy McKinn, 11 years old, was kidnapped in early September 1885 by Geronimo. When the natives were briefly captured in March 1886, Jimmy bitterly resisted being returned to his family, wishing to remain among the Apaches. He was photographed among the natives before Geronimo's surrender to General Crook. Rodeo at Sherman Ranch, Genesee, Kansas. A cowboy with a lasso in hand looks past the herd, across the open prairie, at his fellow cowboys waiting on the horizon, 1902. Outlaw John Sontag was shot dead on September 14, 1904. He had not yet died when this photo was taken. In the background, among the group of men, is Bass Reeves, the first black sheriff of the Old West, who arrested more than 3,000 outlaws. Mining camp of the North Star and Mountaineer Mines. San Juan County, Colorado, 1875. Street view of a typical American frontier town, Corinne, Utah, 1869. Correspondent Fred W. Loring and his mule. He was killed by Apaches 2 days after this photo was taken. Arizona, 1871. Hunters and explorers in the Four Peaks region. Brown Basin, Arizona. Two Crabtree boys, their father, the dogs, and the dens they use for hunting. Their cabin is in Long Creek, at the entrance of Hell's Hip Pocket, fishing camp set up by Chinese settlers on the American frontier. Point San Pedro, California. Photo from 1889. Members of the Shoshone tribe dance on a reservation. Fort Washakie, Wyoming, 1892. Office of Judge Roy Bean's Notary, which also served as a bar. Langtree, Texas, 1900. Cheyenne Indians held prisoner in the county jail in Dodge City in 1878. Captured while attempting to return to the Black Hills from a reservation in Oklahoma. 1913. U.S. federal deputies posing with the police force. Perry, Oklahoma. 1893. Members of Clarence King's 40th Parallel Survey Team near Oriana, Nevada, in 1867. Panoramic view of tents and a camp identified as Camp Beauty. Rock towers and canyon walls in Canyon de Chelly National Monument, Arizona. Tents and possibly an improvised shelter sit at the bottom of the canyon near trees and slopes. Photograph taken in 1873. The mining town of Gold Hill, south of Virginia City, Nevada, in 1867. In 1867, this miner is working 274 meters deep, illuminated by an improvised flash. A burning magnesium wire. Native American men, women, and children, Paiute, sitting or standing in rows under a tree, probably near Cottonwood Springs, Washoe County, Nevada, in 1875. Myman, a Mojave native, guide and interpreter during part of the season in the Colorado Territory, in 1871.